Hello and welcome to the Jacob Jewett IT training and consulting channel. I'm Jacob Jewett, and tonight I have a fun one for you. I have a interview that we're doing live with Justin Williams, and I'm going to start that here in a second. Just a quick update for you. This channel is built with the whole idea of helping people get into IT. Whether it be through certification or through mentoring. So check back here every Wednesday and Sunday night. I do the live stream starting at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Pacific, and basically answer questions if you have them, so you can put them in chat. Or if you're not active during the live stream, you can put your questions into the comments section, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. As far as A+ fundamentals, as far as CompTIA Fundamentals Plus course that I'm putting together, I'm on track to have that published here shortly, in probably another week and a half. And then I'll have that up, and I'll be putting that live at the same time I do a live stream. So that will go live during a live stream. So anyway, tonight I have Justin Williams with me. He is a father of 3 dynamite kids, an accomplished engineer and professional military leader. He has been in the IT industry for 18 plus years, and currently he works for a subcontractor of Splunk called VisiCore Technology Group, and he's also a reservist with the Air Force, not Air Force, with the Army. And he's probably going to kill me for saying that, but I'm going to go ahead and bring Justin on here in a second. And here we go. Hey, Justin, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, Jacob, and no, I'm not going to kill you. National Guard reserves. That's all I'm.
National Guard. There we go. I'm really bad. It had guns. I assumed Army.
Yeah, we all have guns. That's for sure. Yeah, no,
So
I appreciate you inviting me to join. Look forward to having a conversation with you and sharing what I've got. I mean, if it's helpful to anyone, then mission accomplished.
yeah, exactly. I mean the whole idea behind this stream and the channel in general is just get people interested, and we have what last I heard, in the IT industry, security sector alone, there's like openings for like 3 million people. We got tons of open positions in this industry, and a lot of people wanting to know how to get into it. So, but
Yeah, and that 3 million number, I'm not sure exactly how they come up with that figure. Because it almost sounds like there's 3 million unfilled jobs. But I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't. Did they get it from the Bureau of Labor Statistics?
I know the company I work for. We're constantly having problems hiring people, and of course, I think part of it is companies have to get in a new way of thinking because with COVID and everything, people have gotten used to staying home or working from home, and so when you have a company that has a culture that expects you to come to the office or be in the vicinity of the office, sometimes it's hard to find people to fill those positions now, right? So people are
Yeah,
used to working from home and not being in that. So
yeah, that's true. But I mean, that's only applicable for the past couple of years. Prior to that, I mean, 4 years ago, I was hearing that the number was 3 million unfilled jobs. I'm thinking, but the bottom line is that the IT industry, especially in cybersecurity, is it's never going to have a lack of work. So there's always going to be a need for good help. I like to say good help is hard to find, but it's harder to keep.
yeah,
Um, so it really kind of falls on the leadership and at the companies to try to retain their talent, which is kind of part of why I am where I am now.
yeah. So
Um,
So you're a consultant, and you right now specialize with Splunk, right?
that's correct. And I also I'm certified with Cribble as well, Cribble Logstream, which is a company and a product that was put together by actually a group of people that left Splunk.
That happens a lot in the industry. I mean, you go to like industry like events and stuff like that, or you go to like meetups and stuff, and just salespeople alone. You'll go meet someone, and you're like, "Ah, you're really cool," and you'll talk, and of course they're trying to chat you up because they're trying to sell something. But then the
Right.
next time you go to another event, you see them again, and they're in a different shirt, and you're like, weren't you with like Nimble or something? Like, where are you now?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is a lot of we call it poaching, I guess, in the industry,
Yeah,
because, like I said, companies are constantly either trying to sell you something or hire your people. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
um, I'm fortunate that the company I work for, VisiCore Technology Group, they're headquartered out of Maryland, is it's small. It's a small shop, so we all know each other, even though we don't work face to face. But I'm very happy where I am. I've got a lot of flexibility and I've got a lot of diversity in terms of my work assignments. I'm not always doing one thing for the same people. As you well know, Jacob, I bounce back and forth between clients to assist you guys as far as assessing and optimizing your Splunk implementation. Or, in the case that kind of brought us together was, your company is looking at migrating from what you have on-prem or in the Azure cloud into Splunk cloud, which reduces and to a degree, it reduces the overhead that you guys have to worry about because you're no longer having to maintain the backend that supports Splunk.
yeah. That's changed so much because like when I got in the IT industry, I started in I personally started in 98. I graduated from high school and was lucky to go right into a job out of high school in IT. And I mean, we were moving servers around. You had big data centers and stuff like that. And I kind of joke
Right.
with people now, and I don't know if you've experienced the same thing, but I joke with people now that, like, as I've gotten paid more, I do less work. It's kind of crazy because, like, I remember when I was like in MSP or like first being a technician, I would drive around, like my truck was literally full of tools, spare parts, and everything else. Now I don't I don't even touch a screwdriver. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah, no, it's funny too because as you gain seniority, whether it's in the IT sector or elsewhere, um, the less hands-on work that you do, you actually, I mean, the way it should work is first you're a doer and you get very good at that, and then you become like a team lead where you're still doing, but your job is actually to train the people to replace you.
yeah.
So you help them develop their skill set, and then finally, eventually you start moving into more leadership positions and management positions. And I do want to make a distinction here. You lead people, you manage things. So if someone refers to their supervisor as their manager, then sometimes it's just a confusion of the word in my mind. But sometimes there are people that just are not very good leaders, but they're excellent managers.
Yeah.
So you have to understand the strengths of your organization and try to leverage those strengths. Put them in a position where they can succeed based on what they can do.
Yeah, it was the saying, people don't leave companies, they leave bad managers.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Yeah. So I've had that experience myself, and I'm sure you have as well. I mean, so I know that you're in National Guard and you're in IT. What came first for you, the National Guard or IT?
Yes. No, I've always had kind of an interest in computers. It started out as a hobby in gaming as a kid. So I guess the IT piece came first. But as far as my professional experience, I actually joined the Army. Uh, what was it, 2006? But I've been working in the IT world essentially as a content developer or a web developer for a couple of years prior to that. So, I mean, you could say I've been in IT longer than I've been in the Army, but it's a pretty close race.
So when you did web development, did you do the back end stuff like the HTML coding and the CSS and all that stuff, and or did you do like the graphical interface stuff?
Actually, I did a bit of both. I taught myself PHP, taught myself JavaScript, learned how to use the jQuery libraries. So I did a little bit of both. I didn't do the design. We had a graphic designer and this was at a company called Vertical Corporation, which was in Auburn, Alabama, where I grew up and went to school. Um, but my job there was, was taking the graphic design from Photoshop and actually creating a template that we could use to, templatize page production. So I would do static HTML pages, but I also did a lot of PHP. So I'd use the template and generate a PHP file that then could be used across an entire site. We also had a contract with Auburn University. We maintained their content management system for the College of Education, the College of Business, if I remember correctly, as well as Auburn University proper. So, I mean, we actually had a fairly large client, and it required both, a lot of front end work to make things look good, but also a lot of back end work to make things actually function.
Hmm. Yeah, I used to do web pages too, and I got in. I was one of those people who was like, PHP isn't going to go anywhere. It's all about ASP. ASP, that's where it's at. And of course,
It's always 2020, right?
yeah, I had some fun with that. I think the claim to fame I had at the time was I worked for a company, or well, I was kind of subcontracted. I don't know. It was one of those first experiences for a company called NitroSurf, and my whole claim to fame was that I built this search database that you could put your zip code in, and it would give you like what area code you needed to dial and phone number for their dial up service.
Cool. So you did like the NPA NXX lookup kind of thing.
Yeah, basically, yeah, yeah.
That's
So
pretty cool.
it is fun. And then yeah. So you know, as you know, you kind of get into every little area of IT and try it out, right? I don't know about you, but when I used to design web pages, and I tried to be really artsy with it, but whatever, I would I literally could not sleep because I would like have dreams of like a of how something could be fitted on a web page, and I like
Yeah.
wake up in the middle of the night going, "Oh, I gotta do that," and I go downstairs, pull up like Dreamweaver or something, and start working on
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
Corel and everything else, trying to get everything to work together, and then just when you get
Believe it or not, I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember my freshman year of college. So I graduated from Auburn High School in 2000, and I started at Auburn University the fall of 2000. My mom worked there, so half off tuition. It was kind of a no brainer. Um, but I remember dreaming about some code, and I'm trying to remember what language it was. I think it was C.
okay,
Um, So I had this dream about the code that I was trying to write. When I woke up in the morning, I recalled the dream. So I sat down at my computer, kind of sketched it out really quick, and it actually worked. It solved the problem that I've been trying to solve. I'm not going to say that happens often. That's like the one time that I can remember where I dreamed about software code and the dream was the solution. But I know exactly where you're coming from.
I will
I see
I will
there's three types of dreams, and the first type is your brain's trying to work something out,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I will tell you, like doing web pages and stuff kind of ruined me in coding, just because
Oh
it's
yeah.
just like you get something and you put something together and you'll be like, okay, I got this layout, and at the time it was using table tags, right? Before the div tags came out, and
Right. Yeah.
so div tags came out and you try to do what you used to do in tables, and you'd be trying to figure it out and all
But
that
it's a little
stuff.
bit different. It's a
It's a
little bit
lot different.
less structured, a little more free form, and you've got to be really good with cascading style sheets to make sure that everything's aligned properly.
You know what always messed with me was the inheritance, like how
Yeah.
to properly set up inheritance and stuff, and it's just like you sit there for hours looking at this stuff, and you're missing one thing. And I even tell my wife this now. She'll be working on something, and I'll tell her, hey, you've been working on that too long. Get up, walk away, go to the store, do something, come back, and I
Yep.
guarantee you it's going to be a lot easier. And God,
Yeah. It's
if
like
we
I told
only
you during
followed our own advice, right?
yeah, it's like I told you during our engagement. I get up. I try to get up once an hour. Every hour on the hour kind of thing. Walk
Yeah.
around, just get away from the screen for a minute, kind of clear my mind. And as we get older, you don't. You're more susceptible to developing blood clots if you sit there. I mean, no joke. I can sit here 12, 16 hours straight if I need to. I'd much rather not do that. But
Yeah, yeah. So you started doing web pages, and you said, well, when we talked off camera earlier, you talked about how you started kind of building your own computers. You did some gaming and stuff like that. Was there like did you have a mentor? Or was it just a natural like progression going from games to doing IT stuff? And like I know the peripheral, family asks you to do stuff, and you end up being a technician for the family once they know computers. But
right. Well,
what
I
kind
don't
of
know
got
that
you
I had a
there?
mentor for that path. It was for me a very natural extension of my interest in gaming, PC gaming in particular. Um, so back when I put together my first PC, which was I think my senior year of high school, it was back then it was cheaper to buy your components and put them together than it was to buy like a Dell. You could save something on the order of I don't know, put together an equivalent computer for about half the price, maybe three-quarters of the price. But the flip side is you don't have support, only the support that you can provide yourself, and whatever support the component vendors can provide you. But that's how I got started with my interest in IT was I like playing video games. I wanted to build a better computer to play games with higher, better graphic settings and things like that, and actually be able to enjoy it. And then as far as getting into the professional IT world, I needed a job. I started school in 2000. My original major was mechanical engineering because I had this bright idea of let me go do some engineering because eventually I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon because I grew up playing soccer. I grew up breaking bones as a goalkeeper. I thought, yeah, that would be cool. I can already read x-rays and I kind of like helping people. But then, my sophomore year of high school or college, I didn't go to class. I did everything else that you do in college except for go to class. So I had to take a break and I needed a job. So I ended up at this company called IPOV, which was Interactive Point of View. And what they did was they would develop knowledge sites, is what they call them, where we could go in to say like a tire production facility and we would videotape the process of how a tire is made from raw material to final construction. And we would break it down into the different phases and then have a professional voiceover read the scripts that were provided and audited by the company that we were working for to basically build an online training catalog that the company could use to train their new hires and explain what the process looked like. And it also gave them a really solid set of documentation for their processes, which was important for ISO compliance, 9001, 10,001, and so forth. So I worked there originally as a video editor where I would just cut the clips apart. And then I would take the professional voiceovers, put them into the video. And I was also responsible for typing out whatever was being said in the video, notwithstanding the voiceover. But I had to make sure that the video, the voiceover, and then I guess the closed captions in a way were all in sync because you could navigate back and forth through this video. And this was back in 2002, 2003. We've come a long way since then, but that was my first professional IT job. Really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you go from that. Like, I remember watching TV and literally watching the closed captioning person like type the text during a live TV show. And then now, and you knew someone was behind that keyboard, someone was typing it, because every once in a while they make a mistake and you see them go back and correct it and try to correct it quick while it went to the next thing. Now, I mean, YouTube does closed captioning automatically. It's like, hey, if you do this, like once I publish it, it'll be closed captioned.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the advancement of natural language processing and all the algorithmic processing of data, which, Splunk, we're all about data. We want to bring your data in, help you organize it, make sense of it. But yeah, I mean, YouTube on the fly captioning is just an example of how far we've come from that. But yeah, so while I was at IPOV, I started out as that content editor, and then I shifted into the development side where I was actually working on these knowledge sites. And one of the things that I figured out was when a company had JavaScript disabled through policy enforcement, it was difficult for us to track user engagement per page. How long were they on the page? What did they do? How did they get to that page? And then where do they go when they leave that page? And I got this bright idea of hiding an image in the page that actually pointed to a PHP file. So there was no image, but it would transmit information about, the load time, when the user accessed this page, how that user got there, the referral. And then when the page unloaded, also called that image to send additional information. So we managed to build in telemetry even when telemetry was essentially hobbled. I don't think that technique works anymore because that was also, it turns out to be a really good way to exploit a browser.
Yeah.
So I think most browser vendors have caught on to that trick of, oh, there's an image tag, but it doesn't actually reference an image. It's referencing some random file out there.
Oh man, if I know that when I was first like learning about HTML and PHP, like if you're like reading, if you go back and you read a like a HTML book, it talks about how scientists, how the internet was created and how scientists, came up with a hypertext markup language to make it easy to read and stuff like that. I mean, half the web pages you see now, you can't decipher what they are when you look at the code unless you're paying attention. And so there's that. But I will tell you this: they, even though I try to follow standards as much as possible when I did pages, I'm sure you do too. Half the pages I built back in like 2010, 2006, I've pulled a couple of them up and they don't work anymore. Like,
Right.
can't load this, can't load that, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, after my job at Interactive Point of View, funny story, I actually did sign up to join the Air Force, and then they wouldn't ship me for the job that I wanted. They wanted to ship me to do this other job, and I'm like, no, I don't want this other job. So I ended up leaving the delayed entry program is what it was called, and went back to school, and I got a job at Vertical as a web developer. And it was really interesting back then because I think the latest and greatest version of Internet Explorer was like IE 8 or IE9, I forget what it was. But you know, you had Firefox, and then Google Chrome had just kind of released and was building market share.
Yeah.
All three browsers manipulated and interacted with the document object model, the DOM, a little bit differently.
Oh, yeah.
So one cascading style sheet would not work for all the different browsers. You had to build in like hacks into the CSS so that it would display properly in Internet Explorer versus Firefox and then Google Chrome. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the fact that pages you built back then don't work now is because the technology evolved. Unfortunately, it wasn't necessarily, your page wasn't backward or forwards compatible, or the browsers aren't backwards compatible with those old standards.
Oh yeah, I'm well aware of that. I remember the years of when you went to a website, it would specify what browser it would work properly in. So you would always go to a website and it like say at the bottom, works best in IE. My favorite used to be people that used to build web pages in Front Page. You remember that?
Oh yeah, man! Talk about. I remember that. Holy smokes!
And it would only work in IE, and it was like terrible. And you're just like, oh my god! And like you go to someone's webpage and you pull it up and you look at the code and you're like, that's Front Page. Yep. This is dog crap.
Yep. Look at the source and you see all the Front Page specific code, snippets.
Hey,
Man, that's a blast from the past.
Dreamweaver used to do the same thing, and then they got smart and started following the standards. And I don't know anyone that still uses it, but I know that Adobe still publishes it and updates it, so someone's got to be using it. I haven't used it in years, but
yeah. So for anyone who's watching the video, if they want to get into web development, Dreamweaver was a great tool because it helped you very quickly organize the kind of the folder structure for your website, and it helped you manage those files, especially if you get into connecting it with like a version control service, whether it's Git or whatever. I used Dreamweaver back when it was owned by Macromedia.
Yeah.
Remember them?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Flash was owned by Macromedia too. A lot of people think Flash was an Adobe product. It wasn't.
No. Yeah.
It's Macromedia.
I remember being in high school, going to the computer labs in college, at Auburn University, the college labs, so I could play Flash games.
Well, I'm gonna date you a little bit. My first experience with like online anything was with a Wildcat BBS.
Wildcat VBS.
BBS, yeah, by Mustang Software. My claim to fame at the time was I was using software that was developed in Bakersfield, California, and I happened to live there at the time, and it was made by Mustang Software, and they were the de facto software for doing BBSs or bulletin board services. And and then they tried to do like integrate internet and stuff like that. That was kind of fun. But enough about me. But
that's really cool though. I mean,
it was fun stuff.
I guess the one piece of advice I would offer anyone who's interested in developing a career, looking into a career in IT is be prepared to continually learn, because this segment moves very quickly, and if you aren't keeping up with the latest and greatest, you will quickly become obsolete.
Oh, just in the company you work for right now, that's a big difference right there. Coming up through the industry, doing MSP and all that stuff, initially it was like, okay, you would get a customer that would call, and maybe you can relate to this. You get a customer that would call and they'd be like, my computer just died. And the statement would always be to the customer, like, dude, that sucks, but I'm going to tell you, your computer didn't just die. It's a series of things that happen for your computer to get to the point where it just dies. And so the thing that I used to do, that a lot of other technicians wouldn't do, like they would take it to Best Buy or something, and they'd never look properly, but it was always, you went to the event viewer. You would go to the event viewer, look at system or application or something like that, and you would find your problem. And then the step up from that for me was, I was using oh gosh, what is it called? I might have a problem now. They just got attacked not too long ago.
SolarWinds?
No, not SolarWinds. I'll think like it's on the tip of my tongue. It's one of those things, like you think of it in whatever. Anyway, there was this application, and they were actually, this last year, they were attacked, and they got admin access to a lot of people's computers. Because
so you're going to be more specific. That's like saying
Kaseya. Kaseya. You remember Kaseya, or did you ever work with Kaseya?
I do.
Okay, so they were in the news this last year because they got hammered, and it was a big one because they have their little client on all these computers, and it gives the client gives that piece of software admin access to the machine. But like as an MSP, I used Kaseya when I had my own company, because it allowed me to kind of aggregate all of my customers, like error logs and things like that. And when a hard drive starts to go down, back when we had physical hard drives, it didn't just go down. It would like key off issues where it was like losing sectors or this or that was happening, and it would give you a warning that certain things were going on. And so I found that very useful, right? Because I could call a customer and say, hey, your hard drive's starting to fail. And sometimes you get that customer and they're like, oh, you're just trying to nickel and dime me. And I'm like, no, I'm not. That app that you allowed me to install on your machine, it's telling me you're about to go down. Oh, I'll be fine. And sure enough, a week later, they'd be calling me for a new hard drive because it would go down. So the thing that I'm finding fun is working with Splunk now. So you work with Splunk, and I work with Splunk, and what's neat about that is it aggregates like all the information period on everything. So it's like logs, alerts, anything. So you can if you do it right, you can see when an attacker came into your network, what path they took, what they touched along the way. It's a very powerful piece of software.
Yeah, I would actually argue that if you're doing it right, you actually are able to respond to and prevent an attacker from gaining access to your network.
Yeah.
At least, it's one of those, it's like Schrodinger's cat, right? You don't know he's there until he's there.
Yeah.
But you've got to have, good boundary defenses, your perimeter firewalls and whatnot. And you've got to have good sensors throughout your infrastructure so that you can detect certain behaviors. And a good hacker is trying to hide those behaviors in kind of the normal pattern of life within your infrastructure.
Yeah.
But yeah, Splunk does, it brings everything together. So when something does happen, you're able to see, and you kind of work backwards, right? So I found him here. Now let's see how he got here. And you just kind of start putting the pieces together. But with when you have Splunk properly set up, and essentially you've got the forwarder clients installed in the right places and got the right telemetry coming in, you're able to trace from time of detection all the way back to how do they get in most of the time, and which is good because then you can develop controls to reduce the risk of that occurring in the future.
Yeah,
but it's not, you're always kind of reacting. You're trying to eliminate vulnerabilities that you had, but it's difficult to anticipate vulnerabilities that you maybe haven't encountered yet. Because every time it's one of those, it's a give and take game. Every time you figure out a way to stop one way, they're going to figure out a way to get in another way. So.
Yeah, what's really nice about it is if you're paying attention to the information right, you can kind of see them knocking on your door, and not that they've attacked yet, but usually an attacker has some prelim thing that they do. They try kind of test the defenses, right? And
Yep.
then once they find that open hole, they start go through it, and hopefully, if you got your system set up correctly, you're seeing them do that soft tap into your network before they get there.
Yeah, actually, you probably are familiar with this, but I'm going to show this to you. Let me share my screen for a minute.
Yeah, let me get the screen set up so when you share your screen, it's like the main screen here. Give me 1 sec.
Okay. Just let me know when you're ready. But what you're talking about is one really good tool that's widely used is the MITRE ATT&CK.
Yeah.
Um,
You're good to go.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is reconnaissance, active scanning. Do you have any ports that are open, responding to public internet requests that shouldn't be? But yeah, if you're ready, I'll share it.
Yeah, I'm ready. Go for it.
All right. Oh, well, it says you disabled screen sharing.
Did I?
Yep, sure enough.
I inadvertently did it because that's not exactly what I did. Oh well. Yeah. You know what? I'll have you on again and we can do the demonstration. Okay. If that works.
Well, that's a bummer though, because I was going to show you some. There's a lot to cover. How did I get to where I am? That kind of stuff. Everybody loves talking about themselves.
Oh yeah. So how did you end up getting into Splunk as like one of your main things that you do now?
Well, I worked in the Missile Defense Agency as a systems engineer, and I was a federal employee. So those of you who have any experience working with federal agencies, you know that most of the engineers are really like project managers. Your engineering is in spreadsheets and PowerPoint. But we had a requirement that, we have to be able to monitor and surveil our infrastructure, and we wanted to do it smartly. So I asked my team to canvass the industry. What tools are out there? There's SolarWinds, there's Splunk, there is what's the one that I hate? They're still using it.
Oh gosh.
So there's a lot of software out there that allows you to aggregate your data and do stuff with it. And my team came back with a recommendation. It was either Splunk or this other one that I can't remember. And we learned about it. I got smart on Splunk. I just read what I could. We had a demo, and I decided, this is the tool that I think we should implement in our infrastructure to provide us the ability to monitor our equipment, not just from a security perspective, but also, like you said, from, are the drives going to fail? What's the health and status of the hardware?
Yeah.
So Splunk has a lot of tools that allow you to capture that kind of infrastructure telemetry and do predictive analytics. You can see if things are trending in a bad or a good way. So I was a customer, and then I had a couple of very good friends that work for the company that I currently work for, who suggested I take a look at possibly working at that company, at some point. And at the time, I was pretty happy where I was working at the Missile Defense Agency. But it did eventually get to the point where I needed a change. Both just the type of work I was doing, I was no longer satisfied with what I was doing at the agency. And be perfectly honest, government agencies have a very hard time competing salary-wise with their private industry counterparts. So
I've heard a lot of that. I have a next door neighbor that has said the same thing. It's
a fact.
Yeah. Government's always hard. I mean, like, when I first got into IT, I went and worked for like the school systems, and I loved working for the schools, but man, I had to hold like 2 or 3 jobs to stay afloat working for the schools, doing basically the same stuff I do now.
Right. Yeah. I was fortunate that I didn't have to do that. That the one job was sufficient for me. But the funny thing about it is, people don't quit bad companies; they quit bad managers or bad supervisors.
Yeah.
This is actually not an example of that. Greg Jones was my supervisor there, and bar none, probably the best supervisor I've ever worked for in a non-military context.
Yeah.
He really understood what it meant to take care of the people that he was responsible for leading. He would go to bat for you if you do your homework. You show him the recommendation, you show him the homework. He's got your back all day long, but he'd hold you accountable too, because if you just pulling stuff out of nowhere, out of thin air, and throwing it on the table, like, hey, this is the solution. He'll call you on it and say, show me your analysis that supports your recommendation here. So he was always challenging us to look at the problems that we have and think outside the box and do the homework, because by doing the homework, we actually gain more familiarity with the problem itself, not just the solution.
So you're a manager yourself, right? Or
No,
you've been a manager in the past, right?
well, I am a leader. I wouldn't say I've ever been a manager.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, manager, leader. I mean, I'm of the opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm speaking from, I owned my own company for, I had 5 employees and all that stuff. So, I was essentially a manager slash leader. But the opinion I've always had, and you can tell me differently if you feel differently, but was that that you have different managers, but you have the managers I always thought didn't work out were the managers that were so busy trying to build themselves up that the team kind of fell behind. And then you got managers that are they're about building their people, and when they build their people, they themselves get built up and move forward. And I think that's the more successful route, right? Because if you build your people up and you make them successful, they're going to want to make you successful.
Yeah. So both, in private industry as a federal employee and as an officer in the Army National Guard, my concept is very similar. When you're a leader, you have goals, objectives, a mission, things that you must complete. And especially in the Army, there's only a couple of things that you can do all by yourself, and that is pass your PT test, qualify with your personal weapon or your assigned weapon. Those are the only 2 things, and then complete your land navigation training. Like, you can get lost in the woods by yourself, but like the important stuff, leading people, if you got no one to lead, you can't accomplish anything. So it is important that you build up those people. Like, that should be your focus as a good leader, because those are your resources, and don't dehumanize them and treat them as just tools to an end. But if you don't develop the people that you're responsible for, 1, they're going to stop following you. 2, you're never going to be successful in accomplishing what it is that you need to accomplish, because you won't have the support you need.
Yeah, I've also I found great pride in when I've had someone that's worked either under me or like when I taught at private colleges, I get not exactly pride at teaching people, but I get pride at seeing people succeed, right? Like seeing them go and yeah, and it's like it's like internally part of me goes, I had a part in that, like that's so cool. And it's like you never expect anything back for it, but to sit there and be able to say, yeah, I helped that person kind of get where they're at, and every once in a while you'll get that person call you up and they'll be like, thank you so much, you're the reason why I'm where I'm at. And it's like, no, you're the reason why you're at where you're at. I just happen to be there at the right time in the right place to help you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you make your choices, and those choices will lead to other choices. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you had a positive influence in some of those decisions. That's a great thing.
Oh yeah, it makes it. I think, us human beings, we're always looking for, like, something that leaves our mark, right? Something that is here after we're gone. I mean, whether it's you have kids and you leave the kids behind, and the kids grow up and have their own kids and continue the bloodline, or someone builds a nice really neat building and that building is there long after they're gone. I think helping people's one of those things that I think it just spreads, right? It's just helping each other and helping humanity is probably the best thing that we could do as individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is we're all, none of us gets out of this game alive, right?
Yeah.
We're all human beings, regardless of what you look like, where you come from, what you believe in, or choose not to believe in. But Because of that, we're all members of a very large system that I don't think we'll ever truly comprehend. But the things that I do will affect the people around me, whether I know it or not, because we're all interconnected. We all share the same space, the same resources. So I think the key is to live in such a way that does not detract from the living of others. But going back to one thing you said about leaving a mark, as a dad, a friend of mine asked me, it's about 2 or 3 months ago, what's your legacy? What are you building? And I said, you know what, my brothers and I, because I've got two younger brothers, we've always tried to leave the place better than we found it, whatever it is. If I can teach my kids to do that, then they're going to continue the work that I'm not starting, but the work that I'm continuing, because that was, kind of put in us by our parents and their parents, so on and so forth. So yeah, if we can leave the world a slightly better place than when we found it, and then teach our children to do the same, that's how you leave a mark in my book.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love. One of the aspects of I kind of told you this before when we were in engagement working together, that I'm heavy in scouting. One of the things I like about scouting is they have this concept called leave no trace, and it's
Yeah.
not it's not about leaving your mark there, but basically when someone comes like to like an untouched area of wilderness, that if you got there and it looked untouched but you found trash around, you pick it up so the next person that comes along sees this beautiful piece of you know
Yeah,
land.
and that's actually, kind of like part of the code of ethics for just camping.
Yeah.
You know,
A lot of
I
people
like
don't follow it.
Yeah, well, so and it's unfortunate that people don't, but you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. I believe in, if you pack it in, you pack it out.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
but that is like an ethical obligation for anyone that's going into the national forests, the state parks, things like that. Um, Care for that environment so that others can enjoy it too.
yeah.
You know,
And I would say that also goes into work and professional life, right? Care for the area you're in. If
Mhm.
you're receiving a paycheck, make sure you do right by that company while you're there. And hopefully,
Yeah,
they're doing right by you, and it kind of leave it better, in your management style or whatever it is. Or even if you're the low guy on the totem pole, uh, if you vacate that position, you should be leaving it to where the next person that comes in doesn't have a hard time picking up where you left off, right? Or
yeah, yeah.
maybe in a better situation, right? So
Right. In most companies that I've worked for and in the military in general, no one is irreplaceable.
yeah,
Right. So as a leader, it's your job, that the way I see it is, it's my job to make sure that I'm training someone who can take over.
yeah,
When I was in command of Charlie Battery, first the 117th FA out of Troy, Alabama, I was responsible for something on the order of 70 soldiers, 4 howitzers, all the associated equipment, accoutrements. But I had lieutenants that were in charge of the platoons, and it was my job to make sure that if something happened, if I was taken out of the fight, that one of those lieutenants would be able to step up, take charge of the battery, and continue the mission. If you're, as a leader, if you're not doing that, you're not just failing the people that you're leading, you're failing yourself, but you're also failing your organization, because they put you in that position for a specific purpose, objectives, goals, whatever it is, and they expect you to meet them, which means you have to make sure you build that redundancy and that depth chart into what portion of the organization you're responsible for.
that's one of the things I think is cool about the submarine corps. The guys that are in submarines, like everyone on the ship knows how to do just about every job on the ship, because
Right. Right.
if there's a fire, they all have to be there. If there's a something, I think short of like repairing the nuclear the nuclear
Yeah. That's a
area.
little bit different, but
Yeah,
everything else, you're spot on. Plus, I mean,
yeah,
you're in a submarine, you're not going to run from a fire.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
No,
and those guys, they're a different breed too. Hats
yeah.
off to guys who want to live in a submarine.
So the one of the things that I found that has done me well, and I don't know if you've done the same and you've experienced the same, but I've always been the kind of person that when I go to work somewhere, I don't only do my job, but I try to learn the jobs of others. Or if I let's say I'm in the office and I notice the trash is full, I don't wait for the cleaning person to come along. I get the trash and I empty it.
Oh yeah. Like I
You know,
mean,
and there's a lot of
I
people
think
that
that's
think,
just being a decent human being, though. I mean, I do
yeah,
similar things like that. I pick up my kids from daycare, and if it's late in the day, they're getting the trash ready to take out. Well, you know what? I've got two hands. I'll grab the bags, carry them out for them.
yeah.
Just little things.
My point is more going towards like, I've noticed that there's a lot of people with the attitude of like, well, they're not paying me to do that, so why would I do it? And it's like, wait. We're all part of the same team. It doesn't matter what you're getting paid. What you associate your pay with, or what you negotiated with the company as being your pay, that's between you and the company. I mean, if you want to share it, you can share it, but it's really between you and the company. You shouldn't hold that against the next person down the line. And the other thing, like, here's where I found it really successful for myself. And like, I worked for Office Max back in the day, and when I got hired there, I got hired as like a computer salesperson. Well, when people weren't buying computers, I was going and learning how to do the copying section, where they do prints and stuff, and I was learning how to do cashier and stuff. And next thing you know, I was a customer service manager. And someone that had been there longer than myself was like, how did you get that position? I've been working so hard to get here. It's like, well, I just went out and learned everything. Like,
Right, but that increases your value to the company.
exactly.
I would say,
Yeah.
my argument to people who say, well, they don't pay me to do that. It's like, well, no, actually, they pay you to be good stewards of their resources, to
Yeah.
include cleaning up the office areas.
Yeah. Which the resources is you and the other employees and everything else there. So
everything around you.
So if you don't want to share, you're welcome not to. But was there some? What's like the craziest story that you have that's happened while you were in IT? Like, was there something that happened that sticks out in your mind? Like, just
Actually,
like you go back to time and time again. You don't have to mention names.
And to be honest with you, I can't exactly remember the name of the company or the people that I was working with, but this was about 9 months ago. We were working on an enterprise security, another Splunk product, takes your data and it does stuff to help you from a security perspective. And one of the people had asked, this very question: what's the craziest thing you've seen in enterprise security? And I was like, well, I mean, the typical thing is you see people at work that are visiting websites that they should not be visiting, Debbie Does Dallas and all that kind of stuff. And as I'm saying this, I was actually going through their data to show them something. And I was going to show them, hey, this is where you would find that kind of information. And guess what I see? You can't make this stuff up. As a good friend of mine would say, these are Justin's tall tales. But no, I'm telling you, like, it was right there in their own data. People are doing these things. So, it's just one of those, like, be careful what you ask, because I will give you the answer.
And then the next question is what is the thing that you've noticed that other people are doing that you've seen, that you see time after time, that if they had changed it, they'd be much better off?
Is there a particular context, or?
Let's say in I guess getting in IT or getting a job in general, and moving forward in a career.
Yeah, so I think the number one mistake that I see most people make, and this is not just in the technical field, is that when they're starting out, they expect to be paid as a 5 or 10 year employee. Right? So manage your expectations. Be realistic. You're going to be paid commensurate with the responsibilities that you have, the capabilities you provide, and the value that you bring to the company. When you're starting out, those three things are fairly minimal. So your salary, your pay is going to be fairly minimal compared to where you can get. The other part is have that expectation up front. Because if your first offer is higher than what your bare minimum, I mean, that's a good thing. But also don't forget that you're either going to stay there or you're going to climb, and that's going to be up to you. or you can even end up, leaving the company and making even less somewhere else, so it's really up to you. Manage your expectations and just work hard.
So, have you ever had a company? Have you ever gone to work for a company and you go in? Let's say they advertise a certain salary, like a ballpark,
Sure.
and so you go in and you say, "Hey, this is XYZ. What I'm kind of expecting. Here's my experience." Have you ever
Right.
had a company kind of come back at you and say, yeah, we agree to pay you at that level, but we want you to work this amount of time as like a test period, and so they want to pay you a lower wage while you do that work with the promise of going up. Have you ever had a company do that to you?
No, I can't say that I have. And I would caution anyone who's on the receiving end of an offer like that, get it in writing. And if you are going to make 40 grand a year during your probationary period with the promise that you complete this probationary period and we're going to bump you up to 60 grand a year, get that in writing, but also get in writing what the criteria for that decision is.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, I mean, how can you measure if you don't know what the measurements are?
exactly. Yeah, if there's no like goalpost, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, and these are the only like serious questions I have. Other than that, it's just a free flowing thing, right?
Yeah.
We go different paths, but looking back at your career, is there something that you're willing to share that, when you look back on it, and we're just talking not personal, but we're looking
Mhm.
at career, personal career, that
Yeah.
now that you look back on it, gee, I wish I would have done this XYZ different. I would be probably in a different place. Or
No.
are you the one of the people that is like, well, if that didn't happen, this wouldn't happen, so it kind of happened as it was supposed to.
Well, yeah. So you just answered the question for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'm here where I am because of the choices I made. Those choices were influenced by choices I'd made previously.
Yeah.
So people ask me, do you believe in fate? I believe you're fated to make choices.
Yeah, one thing that's changed for me. I don't know how you feel on this, but I maybe you can give me your insight on it. But I reached at a certain point an inflection point for myself. I was one of those people that my self worth was almost solely based upon what other people thought of me. Like, if I did something and someone had a problem with it, or if I was just being myself and someone had a problem with it, or I came up with an
Right.
idea and someone would say, "Oh, that's a stupid idea" or something, it would pretty much almost sometimes make it to where I couldn't move forward. And
Right.
I got to a point where I said, I basically had to sit there and make up my mind, and it was like a light switch. I describe it as a light switch for me, right? It was off and I turned it on and it could never go back to off. And it
Right.
was like I got into the aspect of F what everyone thinks of me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to do what I do. And if people don't like it, fine. If they're going to be negative, I'm going to cut those people out of my life. And, if you're positive, cool. And I'm not talking about the every once in a while you share an idea and someone goes, oh, man, I don't think that's a right idea. You'll get those things, right?
Right.
Constructive
Right.
criticism. But,
Yeah.
but it, basically the light switch was from being so deterministic on what I would do because people thought a certain way to where, look, I'm going to do this. It works for me. And if you don't like it, you can fly a kite. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where it's kind of gone. So
Yeah. So
do you find the
I
same
could
thing?
say I've had similar experience in life like that. And I guess you could say I've reached kind of an inflection point too, in the not too distant past. I'll spare the details, but um, when you were talking, the thought occurred to me: if someone defines their sense of self worth or who they are based on the opinions of others. What happens when those others go away and
Yeah.
you're left alone? How do you define yourself?
Yeah.
You have intrinsic value. You have to realize that. You got to accept it and embrace it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I meet with a therapist on a regular basis to deal with the issues that I've experienced and things that have occurred in my life. But yeah, at the end of the day, you have to be unafraid to just embrace who you are, and also have the courage to define that and not let others define that for you.
It was for me. It was one of the hardest lessons to learn. Like it's when no one really teaches you that, right? Like there's a problem that I had with high school, right? They don't teach you about personal finances, and they don't teach you how to like deal.
Right. Yeah.
you
I
know.
mean, I don't know. I think it might vary because the teachers I had at high school, they did care deeply for their students, and I'm sure they did at your schools as well. But you got to look at everything they got on their plate. Some
Oh
people
yeah.
get more invested than others. The problem is if you're constantly getting invested in people, it can be very draining.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. A lot of times, I guess the other lesson I had to learn is when you when you when you offer someone advice and they don't accept it, just move on. You don't have to sit there and keep telling them the same advice because they're not going to listen.
Right.
You know.
And a friend of mine likes to say that "told you so" is not something you say to your friends. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Something I've had to learn is unsolicited advice is often unwelcome.
Mm-hmm.
If you see somebody struggling, man, I know how he could do that. If he's not asking for help, it doesn't matter what kind of help you want to offer him. He probably won't take it.
Yeah. Offer it once, and if the person doesn't want it,
Right.
just move along. Yeah.
Right.
No. So, we've been at it for an hour. I'm sure you've probably got things that you that you want to get done.
Yeah. I still have things to wrap up here and maybe get a little sleep too.
Yeah. So before we sign off, kind of thing, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to share or to give you the platform?
I mean, I think we spent a lot of time talking about a lot of different subjects.
I'm all over the place. I told you it was a very easy.
Yeah. But if anyone tunes in to try to get some advice about, hey, how do I get into the IT field? I want to be I want to make some money doing that.
Yeah.
But number one, the advice I give people, especially my cousins when they were graduating high school, that every job's going to pay you, right? And you're going to have a boss at every job, and you're going to do some work at every job and work with people. So every job's going to pay you. Get rid of that. If you can enjoy the people you work with, the people you work for, and the work that you do, you've got it made.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you want to get into IT and you think you have these ideas like, this is for me, this is what I want to do, like, give it a try. Just remember that if it's not for you, don't be ashamed that it's not for you. Be ready to move on.
Make sure that you know that you're not God's gift to everything. Right.
You're God's gift to yourself.
Yeah.
And probably your parents, depending upon how you treated them.
Yeah. No, what I mean by that is like, how many people have you worked with, like new people that come in to a company and they immediately think they're God's gift to computers or they networks or something like that, and you're just like,
in general. I've worked with a lot of people like that. I try to minimize the amount of time I have to work with people like that.
I think we all do.
And even the type.
Yeah, be humble.
Yeah, be humble. And as far as advice on getting into the field, just take a programming course, man.
Oh yeah.
Learn some PHP or some JavaScript or Python. Learn Python.
Learn Python.
Data science is pretty much built on Python these days.
And tinker.
Yes.
Like no one's business. So I mean, you don't want to know how many computers I own.
You don't want to know how many I've fried because I like to overclock things. So.
Oh yeah, it's a fun thing. Tinkering is fun. Hey man, I appreciate very much you joining me tonight. And talking with me about these things. I know that we're kind of all over the place, but that's good, because this is all about being authentic, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. And if you're interested in the future coming on again, and we can, I'll turn on screen share.
We can shoot the breeze, or we can, talk about a specific topic. I'd be glad to. I appreciate you inviting me to join. That's humbling.
Yeah,
Because
well,
everybody loves talking about themselves, but I sometimes wonder, do I really have anything that is worth sharing right now?
well, we all have things to share, and I'm getting ready to publish a training course thing, just like putting it out there for free and all that stuff. And part of it is to do that's part of what these live streams are, right? Is to have time to like answer questions and stuff like that. And so what I think would be cool is when I get actual viewership on the channel in the future, is to have you on again, and maybe have it open to questions, and have other people asking the questions, or
that'd be great.
people that are interested in actual IT, or have questions that maybe me and you haven't thought about.
Yeah,
So
that'd be great.
That'd be fun.
I don't know a whole lot though, so I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of questions I Google or I refer to documentation for.
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes it's what's great about chat and stuff like that is you can kind of pick what you answer, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, again, thank you so much, and thank you for anyone that's been watching. And again, I do these live streams every Wednesday and Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Central. I keep on saying Central Pacific. I should just change to military time, and I'd be done with it, right?
In UTC, right?
UTC, yeah. I just, coming from the West Coast, I have to throw in my Pacific friends.
I hear you. But it was like we were talking about the other day. You got to have normalized time across your infrastructure, or Splunk will do some funky things sometimes.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for everyone who's watching or watches in the future. Until then, have a good night.
Yep.